The next speaker will be Francesco Veloso. You're a professor at the Católica Lisbon School of Business and Economics, and you're a member of the Portuguese Council for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. Look forward to hear what you have to say, Francisco.
Thank you very much. As to the challenges or the future of TA, I'm going to briefly mention a couple of thoughts. The first has to do with what I see as the big questions that deal with risk and uncertainty on technology that we are all fully aware that exists. And this is a very important dimension of what technology assessment is about. But that also provides us some guidance about what we might expect, in particular in Europe. Because, for example, I lived 15 years in the US, and 10 of them I was involved in. I was part of a department that had very high involvement in technology assessment for Congress in the US. And one important thing is that there was never in the minds of anybody in the department that there would be, any kind of technology assessment for the state of Pennsylvania, where I was based at. All the technology assessment that people were heavily involved were for the federal government. And this is important because as European institutions get strengthened, there's a variety of risk factors. For example, the risks of nanotechnology in general that are very hard for individual countries, especially for small countries like Portugal, to think that are relevant in terms of focusing their efforts on technology assessment. So what I see as we go forward is bigger questions, big questions, questions that some of them may be actually of global nature, like climate change or nanotechnology. Those are probably going to migrate towards more European-centered institutions such as STO or others that could be created, because those questions are really not motivating enough at the local or the regional or the national level for citizens to really support it and for parliamentaries to really think that it really matters for them. That doesn't mean that technology assessment is not relevant for the countries. On the contrary, I think that if I look at Portugal, unfortunately I see a lot of debate on Parliament that's very poorly informed by what's going on in technology, and not on Parliament, in general, in the political debate here in Portugal. And I think that's really, something that inhibits and reduces the efficiency and the value of the political decision process. And I think that's quite important, because on the other hand, if I think about certain things that I really feel are important for Portugal, like coastal or sea spatial planning, this is something that's critical for Portugal, where Portugal could have a technology assessment unit that is at the leading edge of understanding what the general understanding of science and technology has to do for coastal and sea spatial planning. The same thing with, for example, wind power and intermittency, because this is a big issue here in Portugal. We see even for those that are here, that are Portuguese, over the last few months there have been very vivid debates in Parliament, in the newspapers about the role of the wind power, whether or not the alternative generating power is there just to serve the wind power, or is there for an alternative reason. Are we paying too much in terms of the wind, the tariffs? All of this discussion could be much better informed if there was a little bit more of understanding of the technological dimensions that are associated. And like this, there could be a variety of other issues. So the way I see this is this evolution towards bigger issues, broader issues that are going to be evolving towards these European institutions, and then local but very important dimensions that are going to happen in the local technology assessment units. And I actually think that that's critical to get parliamentary support, because if you go and ask parliamentary to discuss things that they see that they don't have an influence local because it's getting decided in Brussels, they're not going to be motivated to really support any kind of studies on that dimension. And so, in that regard, and I'm going to also bring back a comment that I did in the morning, I think for smaller countries such as Portugal, finding a reasonable balance where one has very small units based in the parliament that are then staffed and supported by, say, the National Science Foundation of the country to support some fellowships for postdocs to come and do some of the groundwork and support this very tiny unit that exists in Parliament, maybe a way forward. And this way forward does not have to be only supported by the National Science Foundation of the country. It could be also supported by strong and important foundations in each of the countries. In Portugal, again, we have, for example, the Gulbenkian Foundation, the Champalimo Foundation, or the Portuguese American Foundation, all of which could support also, some people to go and support this broader effort that happens here in terms of what it could be the development of a technology assessment unit based on the Portuguese Parliament. But again, I think that some of these ideas are not necessarily only for Portugal, that they could be of broader reach or broader interest. To finalize, let me just talk about what I think is a really major challenge, I think, for the technology assessment, for which I don't have an answer myself, but more in terms of the global debate, which has to do with, in general, the democratization of all these processes related to technology and to assessment. We have now at the tip of our fingers the ability to communicate with literally everybody in the planet that has access to an internet, connection. Those are many billions of people. And this is important because we're seeing this, what we call, crowdfunding, crowdsourcing, participation evolving in many interesting and important dimensions. This is supporting business models, both on the private side as well as on the social side. And if we do think that technology assessment plays an important role in the democratic process, I also think that, as we think about what's the future of technology assessment, we need to think and find ways to mobilize this very broad access that we have to really be able to capture people's perception and opinions about technology, and also have technology assessment units playing a role in these bigger democratic processes that are enabled by technology as we now see it. Thank you very much.